Life is all about relationships. Lovers, family, body, or money. How satisfied you are can be completely explained by how you relate to things around you. This is Sophie Jaffe, and together with my husband, Dr. Adi Jaffe, we are here to explore and teach you how to maximize your relationships and achieve a happier life. Let's get ignited.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Ignited Podcast. I'm Adi Jaffe.
And I'm Sophie Jaffe.
And we got couples today.
Yes.
Like outside of us,
Yes.
not us couple.
Correct.
So if you guys don't remember, and I don't know why you wouldn't, because you remember everything we do all the time, I'm sure.
Following constantly.
Always taking notes.
Yeah, you got a journal. Sophie and Adi, things they do in a day.
Yes, I'm sure there's a big list sitting somewhere in your house right now. But we have had these sessions with two different couples. We started them literally last summer, right? Not last summer. It's been a little while, but we talked to these couples who were struggling with issues similar to ours in our Going Deep episode, describing our story. If you haven't heard that, go back to that as well. We'll have that in the notes. And so we're following them. And today we've got Jon and Chelsea back for you.
So essentially what we do in these episodes, and again, you should go back to the previous one because this is part 2. This is the follow-up. And we essentially sit with a couple and discuss the issues going on and basically have a coaching session with them, get really vulnerable, really deep, and help them and give them advice and listen to them. And because we've been there and we've had this experience with cheating before between us, if you listen to our Going Deep episode, like Adi said, then you can really kind of reference this and see where we're coming from. So I'm not a psychologist. Adi studied psychology, but the point here is more about husband and wife, relationships, and just connecting to other people, lending a supportive ear and hand.
Yeah, well, what I thought was cool, and as you guys know, this is kind of my call to action for you guys every time you listen to one of these. When something resonates here, do me a favor, just screenshot it, tag us. We want to know which of these points resonate for you. We love seeing the shares, and we'll share the fan of the week here in a moment. But people listen to our story, Soph, and they say, well, that's great for you guys, but that's not common, or that's not the way these things work out normally. And so the reason I thought this would be a really cool feature when we first kind of thought of it almost a year ago now was, how do we show somebody else's journey, which is difficult. Most people don't want to talk about this. So we kind of just reached out, or when people reached out to us to ask if we'd be willing to...
Yeah, people ask us all the time, can we do a session? We do charge people a lot to meet with us because it's a lot of energy and time and just...
It takes over. You get enmeshed in their life.
Lot where we give a lot in this and we become a part of their lives. And so we sit to people who have really low income, low budget. We propose, would you be comfortable being on the podcast? And
let's share the journey.
Yeah. So that other people can learn and grow from your experience. So that's the intention behind it.
Yeah. And Jon and Chelsea are the second couple. Lacey and Daryl were the first. And first of all, again, I want to applaud these couples for being willing to do this. This is one of the most stigmatizing things that happen to couples, these issues, these cheating, sex addiction, whatever problems in relationships. And so it's really amazing to be able to feature the progress here. And, you're going to see some amazing progress here from Chelsea and Jon. And this isn't the last time we'll do it. So you'll be able to watch along with couples. We're going to have... Lacey back on here in a couple of weeks. And so you'll be able to follow along with them and connect and learn from somebody else's experience. I mean, how many people have never wanted to be a fly on the wall in somebody's therapy session and really know what's going on when the masks are off? So I think this is a really, really cool piece for that. I told you I was going to share the fan of the week and for this week, so I'm a little late in it, but Autumn Low is the fan of the week. Thank you so much for your 5-star rating and review. Thankful every day for this podcast. I've been listening to Dr. Adi and Sophie's podcast religiously for the past several months. Listening to the podcast has been a really important part of my self-care routine. I love that. Self-care is so important. I'm so thankful to have found you guys online. Everything you two talk about hits home for me, and I learned so much. If I was to request anything for Dr. Adi and Sophie, is to do an episode would be on depression and anxiety and young adults struggling with mental health and pressure to figure out your purpose in life after depression. That is an awesome idea for a topic. Maddie, let's add that to our list. Thank you both so much for the podcast. Thank you, Autumn, for the review. We love it. And we just put that on our list of topics to add. So
yes,
can't wait to share that with you coming up. And, you know, you're going to hear a lot of work in this episode with Jon and Chelsea. And I love that this is how this happened. But Alexandra Roxo, which we had on the podcast a while back in a Valentine's episode, go back and listen to that one for sure. It's fun and sexy and all that good stuff. Alexandra moved from LA to New York, and Chelsea started doing work with her. And I have to tell you, when you hear the progress that these two have been through, it's because they've done the work. I think we're pretty good when we sit with them, when we have the conversations. But, you know, an hour here and an hour there talking to a helper, a therapist, a coach is not where the rubber meets the road. It's in doing the work outside of that.
Absolutely. You can get healers and coaches and therapists and pay big money for those things. And they're great. They're helpful. It's really good to get ideas from people and tools, but it's really where the magic happens and the growth happens is when you step away and do the work on your own.
Yep. Because, you know, I actually just shared about this today in a different, on Instagram. Habits done consistently are the roadmap. They're the factors, the tools, the elements of what creates the life and the outcomes that you want.
Absolutely.
I can tell you to do a whole bunch of different things for your everyday life. Me telling them to you and you understanding them will now change your life. You putting them into practice and doing them regularly. That's why I love today's Fan of the Week, the whole idea of making it part of the self-care ritual. Find something that speaks to you. If it's us, that's amazing.
Yep.
If it's not, find something else that does. You know, you don't have to listen to this, but listen to something that ignites you, that lifts you higher, that makes you believe and do the work that it'll take to make your life better than it is right now. So we'll be quick here because we've got this entire little session coming up for you.
A lot to share.
And yeah, let us know. Share this. Tag Chelsea as well and let her know what you thought of this. We really want to hear your input. Our tip of the week, go out there and do the work. Listen for the tips, listen for the habits that have helped Chelsea move forward and Chelsea and Jon together move forward and start applying them in your own life.
Thanks for listening.
See you next week.
Bye. This episode of the Ignited podcast is brought to you by Philosophy Superfoods. The Philosophy offers cleanses and other nutritional products that are unlike any of the other supplements and detoxification programs on the market. Why? Because they actually nourish the body with whole, live, nutrient-rich foods instead of depriving you and leaving you hungry. Have you ever tried a cleanse only to find out that you can't make it through a whole day because you're starving? Ever try a superfood shake that made you nauseous because it was so disgusting you'd rather not eat? The Philosophy fix all that with a simple set of offerings that load up your body with nutrients while actually tasting good. Makes sense, right? Each of the Philosophy superfood and protein blends is vegan, raw, gluten-free, and has absolutely no filler ingredients. With over 15,000 satisfied customers, including some of the world's biggest celebrities like George Clooney, Gerard Butler, Lea Michele, and over 10 years of experience, this is the best stuff you can get. To buy some or find out more info, go to our website, thephilosophy.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the conversation part of today's Ignited episode. I'm going to be honest with you right off the bat, and this is take 2. You guys have all heard me complain about my ADHD at some point. You're going to keep getting evidence of that being true. We've been talking to Chelsea and Jon here for the last 20 minutes. It's been a really, really great conversation. I just forgot to press record. So for those of you who don't remember Chelsea and Jon, we did a Getting Personal episode with them. I feel like it's been about 2 months, 2.5 months ago. If you didn't listen to that one, stop right now. Go back to that episode. All your friends will forgive you. You'll be okay. You'll just gonna kind of lock yourself in a room and listen for. It was a long one too. It was like an hour and 15 minutes that we talked. But none of the stuff we're really going to cover right now is going to make a lot of sense to you if you don't have that background. So just pause this, go back, listen to it, and it'll make sense. I'll give you a quick recap here. Been together for a while, lived down in Florida in Tallahassee, and in Tallahassee had a lot within a pretty quick time period. Chelsea struggled with some really significant loss, and Jon, around and Jon and Chelsea kind of went through a traumatic cheating. It wasn't even an event; it was like a period that caused a lot of trust issues. And in the middle of all that, kind of both of you went through a lot in a period of a handful of months. Decided to pack up and move to Brooklyn, which is where you are right now, and talking to us from there. Again, I don't want to do a really deep recap because anybody listening right now should really go back and listen to that initial episode to get all the details. But we're doing the rounds now. We wanted to check back in with you guys. I know that you implemented some of the things that we've already talked about, and there have been some kind of tests of how things are going for you guys. So if you don't mind, Chelsea, I know you gave it to me 5 minutes ago, but can you walk us through a little summary of how you guys are doing?
Absolutely. So yeah, I think the overall sort of tone of things is things are really good.
You mentioned before that they were boring, which I like as kind of we're not, I'm reading that as we're not fighting as much as we used to, or there's not as many flare-ups, but does it mean more than that?
Well, and that's great. Cause I'm still on it's like 12:43 here now. So it's like 7 a.m. my time. Cause I just got back from Hawaii and my body's really confused and I flew for 19 hours. Like, I don't know where I am. So naturally I was like, coffee is going to be a need. We didn't have any in the house. And we just before we jumped on, went out, we're kind of still finding our neighborhood and are like, we don't really, where is there coffee around here? So we're trying to go find a spot. And I'm definitely well, I'll have the coconut milk if there's no sugar in it. I am that girl.
Sophie is too.
I knew Sophie would relate. Right. And so he pulls out the coconut milk on the counter. It's they have coconut milk, but it's definitely a coffee shop in deep Brooklyn. Right. So he's like, oh, just read it. And so anyway, then it did have sugar in it, but I didn't see it did. And so I'm like, ugh. And I was being a diva about the coffee. I don't even want this. What's wrong? Being a total grouch. And this one who found me the coffee shop, walked with me, even though he didn't want it, was I could hear the inner dialogue of is she serious right now? This is really how we're going to this is what we're going to be doing before we go on to talk about how our relationship is doing.
Best time.
Yeah, it was great. But so we have that little fight, but there was a moment where I felt, and I could feel myself feeling his annoyance and wanting to be why are you annoyed with me? And wanting to just go in. And I was like, no, you're being there was a moment where I could just kind of pause, and we'd have it was a little fight. It was a little we were definitely picking at each other.
Yeah.
But then it just kind of stopped. Unless you disagree with me.
No, it stopped.
It stopped. It's still unpleasant, right? It still was and I fully own I was being a diva. I was this.
Yeah.
What a perfectly boring argument.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's there was sugar in my coffee and now I don't want it. And
How much nicer is it to fight about that than about where the fuck were you last night?
Yeah.
You called me and you didn't show up at home until 4:00 and your shirt was missing.
That's the thing. When you can take the bird's eye view from these things, yes, we're going to get caught up in the everyday. We're going to get caught up in little annoyances. We're going to lash out at each other for dumb reasons. But if you can just bird's eye view and laugh at yourself as soon as possible, sometimes you'll be in it for 15 minutes, but then you can be sorry, I was being lame. It doesn't matter. I'm just moody. I'm tired. I'm jet lagged. As soon as you can pull yourself out of it and just come face to face with it, I think it's refreshing, and it's a nice check-in of cool, we're good.
I'm human, and we're in a couple shit. Yeah, totally. And by the way, there was a lot of key things that Sophie said in that, which was A, I'm sorry, and 2, or B, not A and 2, A and B, and B, owning up your part of it.
Yeah.
Which is always a really, really nice thing to just be able to say, you know what? I was just a diva.
Yep.
Sorry about that. That sucked. Hope the rest of the day works better. It's so much nicer than the kind of more lost, not really sure where we are in the relationship. Is this going to last kind of fights that can happen as well.
Yeah.
So that's cool. I mean, boring is nice, although we're going to dig a little bit into what's been going on because things still happen. And I know you guys filled me in on the fact that there was a recent test of how well you guys were doing, and you guys were able to implement a lot of tools. Do you mind kind of sharing that with us?
Yeah. So we'll start at the first one. You tell it. Yeah.
It was a month ago.
Yeah.
When I decided to surprise my older sister with a trip down to Tallahassee to see her for her birthday.
Hi, Felicity. She's going to listen.
Out of the blue, kind of. By myself, going back down to Tallahassee, where we lived before.
The scene of the crimes.
Yes.
Yeah. And that is, for anybody listening who's ever gone through anything like this, right now it sounds pretty light.
Yeah.
But that is heavy duty, triggering, discomfort, lack of safety, all that stuff comes up.
Yeah.
Especially because can you tell a little bit of the story of how it even came about, like how the announcement for, hey, I'm going back home happened?
Well, it started with subtle hints for like a little while, probably.
Like, hey, it'd be nice for me to go down.
What do you think about this?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be cool? It's our 30th birthday.
And I was always kind of like, yeah, sounds cute. Sure. Let's not talk about this.
Yeah, it's a month away.
Right. Well, and I'm also the planner. Like I would usually we're shifting that a little bit, but I'm usually the one who will book the flights and do the things. And okay, we're shifting it a lot. He's taking over. I'm happy to relinquish that.
Yay.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Anyway, I've been that person. So in my head, I'm like, he's not going to book a flight. Yeah, sure, babe. Sounds great.
Flash forward to 2 days before I leave, and I have a flight booked, and and then that flight actually got booked incorrectly. So instead of leaving in 2 days, it was I'm leaving today.
Yeah.
Yeah. You had flowers in your hand too, right?
Yeah, I went and told her in person. I thought that was the right way to do it, as opposed to texting like, "Hey, babe, I'm on my way to the airport. See you in a couple days."
Yeah, that would have been rough.
Yeah, that's a good point. We didn't talk about that the first round. The fact that you handled it in person is huge because it just takes away that fear factor and her spiraling in her own mind by receiving a text out of the blue.
Yeah, and the anonymity of it, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not seeing the other person's face. You're not able to connect with them. So you told her in person.
And he had flowers, which are like receiving gifts. Giving and receiving gifts is one of my love languages. So even the fact that he paid attention. And
good work. Yeah, and you mentioned before, but Chelsea, what came up for you when you first heard this?
Yeah. So when I actually think when just kidding, I'm not leaving tomorrow, I'm leaving today thing happened, that one was sort of so surprising. I was like, oh, okay. And flowers, thanks. Like I was kind of honestly just distracted. It was so fast. I didn't really have a moment to panic at all. But then prior to that, when it had been like my mother-in-law offered to use miles, he could go down for free. It was like, there was definitely okay, it's going to be fine. You know, like the emoji, like sort of, yeah, it's fine. You guys can see me in the audience can't, but
everybody knows the emoji we're talking about.
Exactly.
We'll put it in the show notes in case you don't.
In case, and you need to reference that. But that was sort of my, like, I so wanted to be like the cool wife who's over it. And I'm self-confident. I'm not insecure. Like I felt that come up of like, just be cool. It's fine. He's trustworthy. You can trust him. You guys are in such a different place. And that is kind of how I rolled with it.
Yeah.
But there definitely underlying was like, I'm scared.
Yeah.
You know, what is he going to do? Is he going to go out and like, it wasn't the fear was not he's going to go back and find her. Like it wasn't that extreme, but it was like, oh, what if he is out with old coworkers and they go out to a bar and it's a fairly small town and like we all go to the same damn hipster bar. Like, so those concerns were definitely there. And then also being worried too, and this is kind of, we'll segue into how we sort of used a tool, but I was worried too because, you know, one of our, sorry, someone texted me. One of our problems in the past is slipping into like what we almost called like a parent-child dynamic, where when I would constantly be like, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? It would feel like I'm a mom, sort of overbearing mom being like, oh, where are you? And controlling. And so I was terrified of like, I don't want to slip into that. I don't want to just be by myself, anxiety spiraling. And then, so all of that was kind of what was going through my head. While
but in the moment you weren't
like,
sharing it.
I'm cool. Yeah, no, I sort of, because again, like I didn't necessarily want to, I wanted to be the cool one.
I think there's also like a level personally, I remember like wanting to kind of test myself and test the waters and just like, I'm just going to try this on for a minute. Like it may not work out. He may prove otherwise, but like, let's just try this out. Even though I'm feeling all these things, like he doesn't necessarily need to know all of that.
That's interesting.
And also saying it out loud makes it more real. So I was just kind of like, all right, I'm feeling all these things. Let's just see how it goes. Let's let him prove me wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I would do that.
That actually resonates really deeply. Because it felt almost like if I said it, one, there was the part of me that was definitely like trying to be cool. But also it felt like in part of that was if I say it, then it's going to be in his head. We're both going to then be more on edge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't want it to spiral into that as he's leaving spontaneously at the last minute, right? Like,
yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So then he travels. Yeah. And then there's a change that happens in the original arrangements that makes you actually kind of step up and go, hey, I need something here.
Yep. Yeah. So as I say, you're welcome to jump in at any point, but
explain the change.
Yeah.
Well, after getting in late, instead of staying with a friend that I was originally going to stay with, I ended up staying with my younger sister, who happens to live in the apartment that Chelsea and I used to live in when the affair happened.
That's so crazy.
And where a lot of the affair happened. Like, I walked in on them and they're like, lots of gnarly memories burned in.
So you hear about this the next day, or you hear about it that night, Chelsea?
That night.
Okay, so you got an update right away?
Yeah.
And then the next day, you put something in action.
I did. So yeah, I called fairly. I kind of tried to let him sleep in because I know it was like his first day off and everything. So I let him sleep in and then called. And I was nervous. I was nervous to ask, but I ultimately was like, hey, would you mind sharing your location with me? Which we had talked about with you guys last time. And yeah, I was definitely nervous to throw it out there because I was still afraid of shifting the dynamic. And again, knowing like we're not going to be in person for the next couple of days, he's going to be there to celebrate his family member. There was a part of me that was like, I don't want to risk starting something when we're not going to be able to really be in it together for another few days. But
yeah, that's a really good point. Anyway. And again, I love that you called, so you didn't text, hey, can you share your location? But rather you had a conversation so that, again, you can at least hear your voices. I don't know if you FaceTimed or not, but it was kind of the ability to at least hear the other person and be able to relate more personally to one another. And you asked for the location, and what came up for you, Jon, when you first heard the question?
Initially, it was a lot of anger, I guess is how I would have expressed it externally, but like not feeling trusted and not sure why she would request that. But then after really thinking about it, realizing that I wasn't able to be trusted, which is why she was thinking of that. Like not then in the past, I wasn't able to be trusted.
Yeah.
In that moment, I was perfectly trustworthy in my actions, I think.
So were you able to process that with her on the phone, or was it like after the conversation that all that landed for you?
On the phone, I think I just like agreed to it, and didn't really get into it. I just like I probably checked out of the conversation for a little bit and just went into that. Yeah. Okay, sure. And in my head, I was just going through all the stuff like, am I okay with this? Like, what is that really fair for her to ask?
Yeah.
Why doesn't she trust me? And then, just thinking, well, I don't have a reason to not turn it on. Like,
wow. And that's a really powerful point, right? It's like, oh, wait, I kind of get to prove myself that there's nothing going wrong by doing this thing that doesn't really matter anyway.
Yeah.
And I love that you're walking us through the processing, because I think for a lot of men, if it's the man who initially had the affair, there is that struggle unless somebody asks you to share the location right away. So like if right after the affair, somebody said, hey, I need you to share your location with me, we're in this really complacent place where we'll do whatever we need to do. But you walk away a few months, a year, whatever, and all of a sudden somebody asks you to do it. And just like every other time that somebody brings up the affair or a trigger or feelings of discomfort, we react. And you said it perfectly, this reaction of, I think it's actually shame and feelings of insecurity around that mistrust that somebody felt about us previously. But I think you're right. Half the time it comes back as anger. Like, why do you need that? That's fucked up. Why you don't trust me? And it's like, and all of a sudden that can become its own problem, its own fight. And so I'm happy to hear that you guys dealt with it that way. What did it feel like once you started actually sharing it, Jon?
It really didn't feel much different, except for the fact that like she knew where I was, and like that for a long time was like the number one question of every phone call. Like, would start with, "Where are you?"
Yeah.
I had like just left for work. The question would be, "Where are you? What are you doing?" And so on that trip, that's not how it was as much. Like, it was more of a like, "Oh, what are you guys doing?" Interested in like what me and my family were doing, as opposed to what I was doing. And
so it even took out something that had been part of the relationship, maybe not even related to this specific kind of affair, but something that just had been triggering or anxiety provoking in the past for you two, just as part of the conversation, just because Chelsea, I think you talked about this a little bit before, but you had this built-in need to know where he was always.
Right.
And now all of a sudden you had that information available to you. So that just became something you didn't have to ask. And it was, I'm using air quotes here, but it was sort of annoying before, even if it had nothing to do with the affair per se. And being able to take that out removed an edge for you both in conversation.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And annoying for both of us, right? Because it's not fun to be the naggy, like, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? And I definitely internalized, like, God, why do I need this? What's wrong with me? Why do I have the anxiety? Blah, blah, blah. And yeah, having that off the table it was that almost sort of like, oh, this is weird. I feel fine. And he's gone. Oh, what do I do with this? Like, now I'm not worrying. What do I do when I'm not worrying? It's a very surreal sort of feeling. And I think we don't realize often how much space the worry takes up until it's not there. You're like, oh, okay.
Oh yeah.
Try this on for size. I don't really know what to do with it.
Yeah, totally right. Just emptying out that headspace that is anxious and concerned with trying to control our environment. You free that up and it just relieves your level of stress overall. It's really great.
Yeah.
So you also mentioned, Jon, earlier that even for you, it was a little triggering to walk back into that apartment.
Yeah. It was definitely, I had concerns. Like, I wasn't sure if I should tell her that I was even going to be staying there. And I felt weird about it. But then after telling her and getting there, thankfully my little sister has changed so much about it. It didn't even feel like the same space, which was very good and helped a lot. Like, I don't think I would have been able to actually fall asleep if it would have been like the same couch, because we left all the furniture there when we moved. So for a little while, it was the same couch, same bed. But thankfully, she had gotten rid of all that stuff. So it was like walking into a new place. Kind of.
Very cool. Very cool. So it's almost like the lead up to it was triggering, because it's still the same street and it's still the same entryway. And like, right as you walk towards the door, it's more and more and more triggering, because that's what happens to us when we get closer and closer to reliving past, especially traumatic experiences. But then the door opens and the place is really different. And I think this is a really good tip for a lot of people listening. If there are places that are triggering for you, whether around traumas or substance use or whatever it is that you're being triggered, this is actually one of the easiest things for a lot of people to do. And that is, if you can completely shift the look, the energy, the smell of the place, it will actually eat up a lot of the attention your brain can give to the cues or the signals that you're in that old spot. And so if the walls are different colors and different pictures are all over the place, and like you said, old furniture is gone, beds, couches, whatever, and they're new, your brain actually sort of processes that space as a relatively new place in the world, which then takes a lot of that craving / trigger / stress and anxiety away. So a lot of really cool things that happened for you guys on this trip that ended up being really helpful for a much easier trip. Because you mentioned that after this day when you slept at now your sister's place, you actually went off to your family's, which is a little outside the city. And so there weren't really a lot of opportunities for more anxiety and more triggers and things like that.
Yeah, and it also just seems like this was such a great experience to allow you to then feel safe. Chelsea, you said that you just got back from a trip to Hawaii. Like, you've been through it. So now it's like, okay, we did the trip. We've been separated. We were separated for 72 hours. It was safe. I felt good. We have our tools. I had your locations. We're not turning it off. Like, we're both in a good place where we're communicating. When I feel a little triggered, I'm going to share that with Chelsea. She's not going to blow up and freak out and be like, no, go get a hotel room. Like, it's all good. We're just living our lives. We've got tools to help us get through, and we're being transparent with each other, which I think is the most important thing that we always want to push is complete transparency with your partner at all stages. Start from the beginning being transparent, because then a lot of these problems won't occur.
Yeah.
And I love that you shared the entire process, Jon. I was wondering whether I should talk to her about it, because in your mind, what was the fear? If I share this, then...
my fear was if I shared it with her, I don't even know what the fear was. Like, I think it was more so it just made me remember the things that I did that made me need to share it.
So like almost like Sophie was saying, if you say it out loud, it becomes more real. If you owned your fear, like then it would be bringing all of that more into, always very real.
Yeah.
It's all very real.
It's all very real, but
it is. And that's, I actually love now, years into this, that Sophie and I do I get to share the real thing, right? Like to say, wow, that made me really uncomfortable, that conversation we just had, or I'm really scared telling you what I'm about to tell you because I'm afraid of how you'll react. And I'm still going to tell you because I want to be transparent. It's a really, I think, brave conversation to have with your partner always, but also really gets her to understand my true state of mind instead of just dumping stuff on her when I want her to know.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's a practice, because when you're healing from a trauma and it's not already your way of communicating to be so transparent, and you have to relearn that when you're still in the healing state. Like for us, it was really tough because it was like we could feel and we knew intuitively, I don't know how, because there was no therapist that was like guiding us through this. We just knew. I knew I wanted to hear everything, every thought process. I knew it would help me heal even though it felt like knives, like in my body every time that he would tell me something like that, did become easier over time. And I knew that transparency would help me to heal faster. And it did. It just also hurt a lot. And it hurt for him to have to hurt me each time and know, like, going into this, like telling him I was triggered or that I was attracted to someone or whatever it is, like he knows it's going to hurt me and he doesn't want to go there. Just like you didn't want to like go there with her, but it's the way to healing, because then once you get over that first difficult thing, then the next thing is like, okay, we got through that difficult thing. And then you build on it. Just like with us getting into arguments, I would always be triggered, I think, back from programming with my parents. Like if they fight, then they're going to get a divorce. So if we fight, it's going to lead to something negative. So, but over time now I've learned like those fights bring us closer. They're not, we fight in a way now that it's like, okay, let's get closer because of this. Like afterwards, I'm going to feel more intimate with you. It's not going to make me want to run away.
Yeah.
So that trust and building of that transparency. So if anyone's listening that is in a like semi-normal relationship, maybe there hasn't been cheating or a huge trauma, try on now full transparency with your partner. Like if they're ready and willing, maybe a therapist guides you through it, or maybe you just try it on for size and see how it makes you feel. I think personally, if we would have started this from the beginning, it probably would have saved a lot of the cheating and hurt and mistrusts and betrayal.
It would have built intimacy on a level where, honestly, probably some of that seeking attention and seeking other people's care wouldn't have even been necessary, because I could have come to you and said, hey, I don't feel connected. I don't feel
you're just, it's like when you first meet someone, you're just trying to make them, like, impress them and put on a face. And even though you're like, oh yeah, we're being so intimate and we're so close and like we're having sex and we're doing all these things, you're not actually that intimate in the beginning. At least we weren't.
Yeah. Well, you have that mask. Putting on a mask on. You're just trying to, I'm great.
Yeah.
Business is amazing. Everyone in my family, I love them so much. They're incredible.
We're so close.
I'm so excited for the rest of my life. In the meantime, there's like a huge closet in the back
full of
like
fears.
Stuff it in.
Double doors and like 40 locks.
Yeah.
No, there's nothing. I'm completely transparent with you.
Yeah.
3 years later, don't talk to half my family. I'm really scared about where I am in life. I've never really been able to connect to anybody else. And so I'm scared you're going to leave me every time I see you. Did I not mention these things before?
Yeah, and there's more of a chance that you will be left, because now all of a sudden you're a different person than I thought you were.
Totally.
And now you're a liar.
Yeah, I wish people could practice this stuff before trauma happens. That would be incredible. So the trip went well. You came back and you guys processed it a little bit. You talked a little bit about what happened and everything like that. And how did you feel after this trip was done, Chelsea?
I'm trying to think back to like the specific moment, like when you came home. I think honestly, it was a really nice, refreshing, thinking back on it, like a nice, refreshing, very like normal coupley moment of like, one of us has been traveling and now we came back and it's like, oh, I missed you. And it's real. Like, I missed you, and not in a codependent, dear God, now we're back together. I can watch you. I can feel safe. Like, no, I just like missed you. And obviously there was the anxiety and what have you, but yeah. And it was a moment, like, I feel like even throughout our relationship prior to any of the big traumas, like when I worked in PR, it was a hospitality focused agency. I traveled all the time, especially in the last year. I traveled constantly, and we never really had that moment of like, oh, I missed you. We're home. Pick you up at the airport. Like, we didn't have that like ever in our relationship.
Interesting.
That connection.
Yeah. That genuine intimacy that in some ways is like so simple and boring. It was just like, oh yeah, I missed you.
Yeah.
And now we get to hug and it's great. How was your trip?
I think those little normal check-ins are so important. Like you said, I don't know if we got it on this recording, but you said that you were thinking about this and ahead of time and just thinking, yeah, we're going to record with Sophie and Adi again. where are we in our relationship and how important it is to just check in on a normal Wednesday. How are we doing? How am I doing? Those questions are so important, not because something came up and it's a negative thing and it's in your face, but just like, how am I doing right now?
Yeah.
Well, and that's actually, I think when you guys are talking about, right, how the ideal is people start sharing really deeply the whole truth of like, here's what I'm thinking and here's what I'm thinking about what I'm thinking. Here's what I'm feeling about. Like,
yeah,
I feel like those checking a big obstacle to so many people. And I know for us is we're not, when do we teach, when is the like how to talk about your feelings curriculum happening? When do we learn that? I think I missed that.
Yeah.
And so I feel like those check-ins for me at least, and it's something, it's something even in a lot of the personal development work, whether it's therapy or the spiritual stuff, it took me a long time of doing that work to actually start applying. Like, I meditate every day, but what am I learning from my meditation every day?
Sure. Yeah.
Right? How am I
not
actually
just going through the motions?
Yeah. How am I applying what I'm learning in these check-ins about like, oh, wow, I feel really anxious today. How can I bring that awareness into, oh, I just picked a fight with you. What's happening with me or whatever.
Exactly.
Like that sort of thing.
So true. So true.
We interviewed someone the other day and it was her anniversary. And she was saying that she was sitting outside in her car before coming into our house sobbing because a song came on and it reminded her of when they just met. And she's just like, God, I'm so unappreciative on a daily basis of how much he means to me. And she was just crying tears of like joy and sadness and all the things. And, that's beautiful. And it's also sad that it takes like your anniversary once a year to check in and be like, wow, our relationship means so much to me. And I'm going to tell that person right now, and that happens, deaths that happen and like just big moments in our life that force us to check in with what really matters. If we can start doing that more, like every single day, just checking in. I mean, that's what we're trying to do with our children is just like, what are you grateful for right now? Like what simple things like this roof over our head? Like not everyone has that. Mm-hmm. Like we're on computers right now. Not everyone has or will ever have a computer in their life. Like those little simple pleasures help ground you into the present moment of like what's working and also what's not, right? And that's important. Like, let's check in right now of what's not working and where we're not showing up and being fully authentic to our partner so we can work on that now before we're 6 months down the road.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Totally. So that trip went pretty well, especially given the fact that it was a potential nightmare, right?
There were lots of little landmines. It's like that like old game from the 90s, landmine, like push the button, not sure if it's going to explode.
Totally. Yeah. But you guys did a lot of things right, which is really beautiful to hear. You mentioned that there were 2 tests.
I don't even know what that game is.
Oh. I hope someone knows what I'm referencing.
Wait, you don't know that you don't know that Minefield game?
Minesweeper is what comes to my head.
I think it might be Minesweeper.
It might be Minesweeper.
On the computer?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Minesweeper.
The one where you click and like either 4 squares open or you blow up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway,
I don't know if we maybe want to tag and give a URL for Minesweeper. Does that thing still exist?
Yeah, it's still on every computer or every
window. Right. That's how much time I have for computer games nowadays. You said that there were 2 events that tested you guys. What's the second?
So the second, I think, it was both of our trips. I think that's what I was referencing. So as I think, we've mentioned on this recording, I just got back from Maui, from actually a week in Maui. And it's not an insignificant time difference. So that in and of itself was a little bit like, oh, okay, he's going to be asleep when I'm going to bed. So we already didn't get to talk as much because he was working a lot. Like he was at work by the time I was waking up. And I guess for me, I think this one was honestly a bigger test for me in that vein of, and for both of us, but for me in the vein of like, okay, how okay can I be by myself?
Oh yeah.
Really coming. I was actually yesterday. Monday. I think it was Monday. Whenever I was waiting to go for the airport. So I was actually with one of my girlfriends sitting at I had never been to Maui. It's absurd.
Yeah.
Absurdly magic place. But I was sitting there in the magic of Maui and just kind of reflecting on this past year, my own stuff, a lot of different things. And I said to her something to the effect of like, I realized on this particular trip, I think for the first time in a while, if not the first time ever, I feel whole.
Mm.
And that realization for me, it took me the whole week of like, what am I feeling? Like, I feel safe. I don't feel like I miss him. I missed the cats. I missed home. But there wasn't this like need of where is he? What is he doing? What's happening? Are the cats okay? I didn't feel, and again, that worry just wasn't there. And there was an element of just kind of safety and wholeness. And then again, last night, like when he got home, I was on a phone call, but then when we wrapped up, it was just such a genuine, simple moment. And then we like hung out and like caught up on TV that was actually not terribly triggering in the affair stuff, but triggering in other things. And we were both fine. So yeah, it was
so great.
Do you know what changes in the last few months have enabled you to have that experience, to feel whole?
There are a number of them. Alexandra Roxo is a cause of some of them.
Yeah.
She's awesome.
She's incredible. I love her dearly. She's amazing. Yeah, I think the shift, like it's almost like the Tallahassee trip was a stepping stone to getting, Sophie, like you said, to kind of trying on for size, like, okay, how is it going to be if I don't freak out and kind of replay all the same pattern?
Exactly.
How is it going to be if I kind of like, it's not like I'm holding back and being inauthentic.
Just going to show up a little differently this time and see how that works.
Yeah. It has like a different texture to it.
And it's cool because when you show up differently, he in turn shows up differently, right? Like that's how energy works. Like you change things up, he changes things up in response to your changing things up. So it's kind of cool to like both of you kind of role play these different ways of being in the relationship together, and how cool it is that you can morph any relationship into a different way of being and acting just in like one example.
Yeah. And it was like, oh, we tried that on for size and it felt good, not for me to be like, oh my God, it's going to be terrible. What's going to happen? And then he's like, why do you feel terrible? What's happening? I don't know. Nothing's going to happen. But now I don't want to talk to you. So like, no, I don't like, instead of switching into that, I was like, all right, I'm going to pull back. Ooh, I need a little more. Can I have this thing? He's like, oh, I don't really like that. But like, yeah, you can have the thing. And then we were both like, oh, cool.
We're good.
We have the location and we're good. And so I think that even that little shift allowed me to feel just kind of throughout our existence, a deeper sense of safety, and just throughout my existence, like a deeper sense of safety. And then, I mean, specifically with Alexandra, I've been working through not like separate trauma. So my own like big childhood traumas. So working through that stuff and realizing like he's been able to hold such deep space. And I think in part because we had a little pocket of the safety and I got to sort of feel that softening. And so as I've been moving through things, doing deep embodiment work, having a lot of really big shifts and movements and breakthroughs and breakdowns, I've been able to really experience kind of like what a rock and safe place he is. And yeah, I don't know. I was bragging about you in Maui of like, I don't even know that he would have the words for like what he's doing, but like holding such a deep space and knowing, you might have the words. I don't know. Yeah.
I can guarantee I don't have the words.
But he's held such a deep space. And in the moments when like I'm really in a trauma or having a really deep embodiment practice, which is like, I don't know what exactly work Alexandra has like done with you guys, but it's like crying and howling and like, it's not pretty. And so having a partner be able to hold space and like sort of know the moments, like he's been so good at knowing the moments when like there have been times when I've needed to sleep in the other room to just like be by myself. And it's at least felt fine. And when it's felt sort of sad, he's like talked about it and been like, hey, I missed you last night. Like, and we've talked about things in such a way that, yeah, I don't know. It's
just having that like unconditional support.
Yeah.
In whatever, like however messy it gets, like ugly crying, like definitely howling like a wolf, like all the things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Our neighbors think I'm nuts, but he's great.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, totally. You know, I love this because so often people tend to only focus on what went wrong and put all their effort into fixing that thing. And what you end up not paying attention to are all the things that have been wrong in life for so long that you kind of just forgot. You just taken them for granted. What brought you to
that point to begin with.
Which is exactly why everything got screwed up in the first place. And to be able to do your own work that explicitly or directly isn't quote unquote related to the coupleship, but you're half the couple. So it has everything to do with the coupleship, because when you're in your power, when you feel, and you know this, right? When the two of you are on cloud nine and everything feels like it's clicking and work is amazing and you're not stressed and you got the sleep and you're hopeful for the future and all that stuff you're like in magic Disneyland for relationships. It's amazing. You love each other. It feels connected. And if one person separates from that and starts feeling down and hopeless and empty and insecure or sad or anxious, it changes the dynamic. And that's just reality. There's no way to avoid that. That will continue happening forever. But when you can come together and say, hey, I still love you and you're still okay when you're in these places, how can I support you? And each one of the people is doing the most work they can do to be their best selves in every moment. We get more opportunities to appreciate our partner, even if what they're into is completely different than what we're into, to just be able to sit there and watch them in their growth, in their expansion, and just say, you know, this is amazing. You seem like you're really, really happy doing this. And so all the more power to you. And how can I be supportive of that is huge, because then I think that's all we really want in a partner when we get down to it is we want somebody who loves us for us and will be there for us, even when we're ugly crying and even when it sucks. Because let's be honest about it. Most people would be there when we're super secure, loving everything about life, happy about every moment. Yeah, that's when everybody comes through.
Exactly.
What we need is somebody who will be there for us when we're struggling.
Right.
So that's really cool that you've been able to do that work.
Yep.
So I want, again, my goal for these is always to leave you guys with some actionable next steps. But also for everybody listening to kind of, this sounds great, right? It's kind of funny to say that our relationship is kind of boring and we get to go on trips separately and not lose our minds as an end goal. But if anybody listening right now has ever struggled with cheating or ever struggled with trauma in a relationship, you know how this is a victory by itself.
Yeah.
So what are
sort of expand, like, this is what's possible. Because I feel like for me, genuinely looking to you guys because I actually you guys started Ignited right around like when I was in the throes of the affair was actively happening.
Yeah. Wow.
And so, and like, I'd been following Sophie for years. And so I'd read all the things and heard all the things, and genuinely within the first couple of weeks, knowing that I could look to an example of like a couple who did the work and made it work and was still happening. And not only like their relationship was good, but like I've admired Sophie for a really long time. Like life is good. Things are good. Yeah. It's not just like, oh, we're doing it and we're in the work and think, oh, it's kind of surviving.
Still together. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Making it work.
And so knowing, like, for me, in the many, many moments of like, I don't know why, because we were still going to therapy. I was like 5 months. I don't know why I'm still with this person. I don't know if it's going to work.
Yeah.
I have no idea. And so that's, part of my hope is I know it mattered massively to me to be able to look to you guys and like go back and listen to an episode and be like, okay, I got my, like, there's my little fuel for the week of like, it is possible.
Yeah.
That's so great to hear.
Thank you for sharing that.
That's so great to hear, because it's literally the purpose. The reason why we started the podcast was in hopes that would ever happen to anybody listening.
Well, and based off the articles that I wrote and all of the feedback of women all over the world being like, okay, this is the only piece of work or article that is positive, and that if we stick it out, we could possibly make it. Like, it's the only thing that they could kind of hold on to. And so we were like, how do we expand on that?
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay. So you start off with boring when we first talked, and I kind of caught that right off the bat. So when you guys are looking forward now, it sounds like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, there's not a lot of re-triggering of trauma, or at least not a lot of re-triggering of trauma that feels difficult to handle. That's sort of a question. If that is happening, then let's talk about that as well. And then the second piece, what are some opportunities for expansion? What are some places that, if either one of you, it's a kind of a separate question. It's not for the two of you, it's for each one of you. What are some areas that you think would be exciting, fun, inspired, increase your intimacy, that you have opportunities for that?
I was gonna say, I want to sit with the first one. Well, and I mean, this isn't, I guess it's like, there are still triggers, but they feel not hard to handle. Like, I definitely had a few weeks ago, I definitely had a moment of like going back and scrolling through her Instagram and like salt. Yeah. And it was totally like a character on TV. Like, the voice reminded me of this woman's voice. And I was like, I hate her. And naturally now I must spend an hour going through Instagram. Right. But eventually I was like, okay, Chelsea, this is ridiculous. Eventually the next day, like, it took me a little bit to like
reel back.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely like got mad at him. It was like, I chose this completely, like, well, not completely, but the trigger I did lean into. But yeah, so that I just, in the vein of like complete realness, we're not all sunshine and roses now. Like, it definitely, but it feels pretty, I feel like I have a pretty solid toolkit to work my way out of it. Though always open to expanding that. And then what about, I don't know, areas of life that feel good to be sort of expansive in? Well, actually, and I think we kind of have some ideas and have some intentions of like things that we are going to be working on moving forward. But I feel like now that a lot of the like constant worrying, hypervigilance, micromanaging of like, are we good? Are we good? Are we good? The relationship's good. We're sort of functioning. Now that a lot of that has settled, other than my occasional like Instagram binges, it almost feels like we're kind of trying to work into like, how do we, and it feels like such a simple problem, but how do we have intentional time for each other? Like, yeah, that's something that I know. And we both have like very sort of different schedules right now. We're doing a lot of things. Like, I'm starting to teach more, which is exciting and amazing. He got the sous chef job. Like, they're all great things. And we're suddenly like, okay, I teach on Wednesday nights when he has Wednesday off. How do we find time for each other? And how do we be really intentional about it without making it feel like, I know a lot of times he sort of laughs at like what a planner I am. I'm like, we need to know every time there is a date night and all the things and what we're doing and where it's going to be and like how the money is going to factor into all of it. Like, that's much more me. And he's like, I don't know, let's just figure it out. We'll decide something. And
because when we do that, it's amazing.
And we don't do it often enough because our schedules are so crazy. Yeah. So,
yep. So it's kind of there are two different things going on: the intentionality and the making sure that it happens, and then sorting the more spontaneous versus more structured and planned version that you both like.
Yep.
Cool. I mean, that's a really interesting.
Yeah.
I like that. Sophie and I feel like fall on the side of we would totally both be down for a constant planned date night. I think that doesn't. So it's really interesting to hear the different perspective of I'm not into that as much. And so
I'm not.
You're not into
Yeah,
it?
like I think he would.
We're gonna work on some of our issues.
I think he
right
would
now.
prefer to have. I think he would prefer to have a date night. Like, oh, every Wednesday night we're like, he likes things to be in a schedule.
As you guys noticed today, I forget them if they're not on the schedule. If like
right,
that's the thing. It's not just that I like it.
And I get it. I get that, but also I have to have space to really show up and be present. And sometimes on a Thursday night, I don't feel like going out. And sometimes on a, Saturday at 7, I'm like, I'd rather be in my pajamas. And like, I understand like the need to do that so that his brain remembers, but it's also like, I need some spontaneous, like, I'm feeling really good right now. Let's go on a hike.
Well, actually, so that was my suggested kind of solution would be if you two have a sense of how much of this intentional time you want. And it's not all date night, right? It's also literally like Sophie and I watch a show or half a show, depending on how much time we have at the end of the night, pretty much every night. It's one of those moments where we kind of zone out and share space while being entertained.
And that's it's a ritual that like I look forward to because I don't numb out ever. Like I won't sit and have a glass of wine by myself. I don't smoke pot. I don't have any release like that where like I don't watch things for pleasure on my phone. I don't like have a TV show that I escape to. I have nothing. I am full on from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to sleep, except for that time when we watch shows. So when I don't have it for a few days, I'm like, I am so overwhelmed. Like I need to just numb out. And
or if I, at the end of the day, I'm like, hey, we got to talk about this one thing from work. She looks at me like I'm the devil.
She's lose my mind. I'm like, I am done with the day.
It could literally be philosophy. I could literally be like,
I don't want to talk about my company. Like,
nothing.
It'll be fine tomorrow.
Totally. Yeah. Totally. So that's something we know, right? That's a half hour to an hour pretty much every day that we have where we just zone out. Earlier on, by the way, we would have a check-in that we would do a few times a week during
when we were in that time.
When we were in that time. Although that'd be nice to reintroduce. We haven't done it in a while. So one thing is, how much of it do you want?
Yeah.
What of it can be ritualized?
And maybe each of you planning out something fun and different. So you each take responsibility and it's not all on you. Because for me, I like to be the one to do that stuff because I'm quote unquote better at it, but I also appreciate him taking the time and energy so I don't build resentment. We went to a movie in the middle of the day on Monday and it was the most fun and random. Like at 2 p.m. we're standing at the movies. It's bright outside, like those kind of fun things that kind of just like jolt you and it's not part of the normal routine or like a date night going to dinner. I think for me, I crave that too, is like just throwing something new into the mix.
Yeah. Shout out to Matthew McConaughey and the White Boy Rick crew.
Really good.
Good one.
A fun movie when it comes out. I don't think it's out yet. That was fun and spontaneous. So what I was going to say is I wonder what it would feel like to, like Sophie just suggested, split up that intentional time planning. And if instead of, let's say, Chelsea likes it to be planned. So maybe if it's every week you want a date night, 2 of those a month are pre-scheduled.
Yeah.
Because that way your work schedule can be addressed and all the other things.
Too.
You know for sure that it happens. So we get those.
Yeah.
And then 2 of them are more spontaneous. And so everybody gets a little bit of what they want. And what'll end up happening over time is you'll fall into a rhythm that feels right for the 2 of you.
Right.
But putting in that intentionality on the front end and saying, let's come up. I always like coming up with an initial system that we're testing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to adjust it, right? And I feel like that's the thing that works best in life always. If everything is just by the cuff, then people normally end up not always getting what they want because situations are just not right for it always. And so having a soft system to start out with and be able to say, okay, let's start here and check in with each other. And now you guys are so good at being able to really check in with each other. So if it feels uncomfortable, you won't just eat it and go, no, that was great. That's exactly what I wanted. While in your head, you're thinking to yourself, that sucks. Why did I just spend those 3 hours of my life? Yeah. As long as you can have real honest conversation and know you're not having the conversation. Like if you're uncomfortable, something didn't feel right, you sharing that is a positive. That's a good thing for the relationship because now you'll be able to come up with an alternate version of it that will make everything better.
Right. Yeah.
How does that feel?
It feels great. Tell me more about the check-ins that you guys did.
Yeah, we can actually maybe even share. I'll make them public.
Yeah.
So we have them for anybody who signs up for a relationship course. I think we loaded them in there. So there's Sophie and I have a relationship intro course that has communication. We can give you guys access to it. And so if anybody wants to sign up, relationship intro course Ignited, if you look that up, you'll find the link for it. And it's a really simple 5 to 10 minute check-in.
It's like for each person, like 5 to 10 for each person.
And we'll share it with you guys. It's
the premise of it is really about like holding space and listening. So the questions are whatever, like we can definitely give you the exact questions, but the point of it the takeaway for me each time is like, I'm going to be in these questions, I'm going to answer them, and you're going to hold space for me and not speak. You're not going to respond. You're not going to defend. You're not going to make me feel better. There's nothing. It's just me speaking, sharing where I'm at right now in this moment, my perspective on our relationship in this moment, how you showed up for me this week, and then you flip.
Yeah. It's not a conversation. It's literally a check-in. Here's how I'm doing and how I am. Here's how I'm doing and how I am. And that's it. At most you acknowledge.
And here's my experience of where we are. Yeah.
So we'll share that with you guys, and we'll have a link to the relationship intro. It's fun and pretty easy to do. And as we talked about earlier, it helps you identify any spots that you need to work on earlier in the process instead of when they blow up.
Yeah. Sweet.
Cool. Thank you guys so much for doing this.
Yeah.
This has been really, really fun.
So fun.
Indeed.
Guaranteed people are listening right now, as you mentioned, Chelsea, who now feel inspired about things they're going through and feel like, wait, in like a year and a half, we can be good.
Yeah, if you do the work.
Going to Maui.
Yeah.
That's it. All you need to do is go to Maui to a mastermind, move to Brooklyn.
Fast track.
And change everything about your life. That's it.
Yeah, casual. It'll be great.
No, thank you guys so much. This has been great. Thank you, everybody, for listening to another one of our Getting Personal episodes. Thank you guys so much for sharing your experience. Love you all, and see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Ignited podcast. We were so happy to have you along for this ride. Please go and subscribe to this. Leave us a review. We love hearing from you. And if you want more, don't forget to go to ignited.com, where all the podcast episodes are available with show notes and so many of the little details and links from each one of these interviews. And you can look at all the future events that we have going on, all the things that make Ignited so special, even beyond this recording. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week.